Hi guys, I'm Andrea and welcome to my channel again. I feel like I haven't spoken to the camera in a while. It's been a crazy start to the new year. I hanged out with my friends.
Here, you can be my vlog. Say something.
Bye. I met some filmmakers.
Sean? No? Okay, cool.
What stuff has he done?
Yeah, look at that. Guillermo del Toro and Patty Jenkins. This is Willem Dafoe. This is Salma Hayek. Jessica Chastain. Patty Jenkins. These are some of the shots my brother got. That's Guillermo del Toro. That's Salma Hayek.
I did a lot of cool stuff that I will probably be inserting around here.
And then I said, maybe it's just not for me. Maybe I wasn't meant to be an actress, and it's okay. I can't do this to my family. I'm a tourist.
But today I wanted to talk about my December reads and my TBR list for January. So let's get started. In December, I was horrible and only read like 4 books. You know, it's the end of the year. You're busy and you're seeing family that I didn't get to read as much, unfortunately. But I did check out this book called Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire. And I got this on Black Friday. The thing is, I saved it for Christmas time because I wanted to read it for the holidays because I thought it'd be the perfect thing because it's the story of the Nutcracker. And I was confused a little bit about that because when I read this book, I did not know this was an origin story about the toy maker that makes the Nutcracker. So as I was reading the book, I was really confused. I was like, when is the Sugar Plum Fairy gonna pop up? When is the Mouse King gonna show up? And so I feel that kind of distracted from my reading experience because I was waiting for all these other characters to show up through the pages, when this story is really about the toy maker himself. Gregory does a really great job of capturing the vibe of German literature. And I know this book was kind of promoted, or at least the inside cover said it's promoted as kind of German romanticism mixed with some Hellenic elements. And I definitely agree, this book is just saturated in symbolism and double meanings, and it was very atmospheric. It felt like walking down a dark forest or stepping on cold grass is what I would say this book felt like when I was reading it, and it'd be so interesting to kind of delve into that in a second reread. And I think this is a book that deserves more than one reading. It also kind of reminded me of Heidi in the sense that both of these characters, Heidi and Dirk, are kind of people that were in this kind of forest/mountain life, and they kind of thrust and moved around into this village/city life, and they're kind of always missing aspects or missing the entirety of their old life, knowing that they can't exactly completely go back. The second book I read this month, or the second book in my list at least, is We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach, and this is book, I talked about it in my zine video, but it's a book about an asteroid called Ardor, and Ardor is going to hit or come close to the Earth in 2 months' time. So there's a 2/3 chance of Ardor hitting Earth, destroying everything, wiping everything out as we know it, and there's a 1/3 chance of humanity surviving, basically. So because of the premise, I think this book is kind of inherently philosophical, and I think it deals with the stages of grief really greatly, and it kind of escapes, cliches about end of the world novels because it doesn't see it in the greater scheme of broader sense of world devastation, everything's going to go over, but instead it kind of focuses in on this very small group of teenagers or high school students in Seattle, Washington. And I think like that in itself is super interesting because it's a universe that's very like our own, and because it's dealing with high school kids, I think at that age, as young people, you don't want to think that the reality that they're actually in can actually happen. As a high school kid, I think you kind of think of yourself as invincible. If not yourself, at least the people around you. You can't imagine death as a certainty. So that's what I really admired about the book. You follow 4 high school kids, Peter, Andy, Eliza, and Anita, and they all kind of have these stereotypes that kind of embody them. One's a jock, one's an know-it-all, one's slut, so forth and so forth. But it's kind of about the evolution of those stereotypes when they're presented with this kind of bigger reality of when there's 2 months left on Earth, what can you really live for? Personally, I gotta admit, I could have done with more asteroid. I really like sci-fi, so I could have done with more sci-fi aspects, but I do appreciate the book for what it is, and I really liked it for what it is. but I was expecting something else. I think this book can be best described with the last part of T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Man, not with a bang but a whimper, and I think this book is about the whimpers. The third book I read was The Princess Diaries by Carrie Fisher. I read this over the anniversary of her death, and I read it on ebook, and I'm a giant Star Wars fan. I feel like I'm always talking about Star Wars, but I love Star Wars. So when I heard this book was coming out a year ago, I was really excited to read it, but things got in the way and I didn't end up reading it until now, and I'm really glad that I did. Carrie was this kind of renowned script doctor in Hollywood, so she fixed scripts for already established screenplays and stuff like that, and I was really interested to see how her writing would shine through in this novel. I haven't actually read any of her other novels. She is an established writer. She wrote a bunch of books before this one. This one is her very last book she ever wrote. The bulk of it is Star Wars, and I think if you're a Star Wars fan and you love those films, you have to definitely read this. The majority of that Star Wars, though, is the love affair she had with her co-star Harrison Ford, aka Han Solo, and their love affair is just so heartbreaking the way she writes it, and her romance with Harrison reads like a great tragic romance novel, except this isn't fiction, it actually happened. And I think the theme of the book really is about unrequited love, and there's a specific part I wanted to read a little bit of. She says, when Harrison and her were kind of breaking things off, he said to her, "You have the eyes of a doe and the balls of a samurai." And then later Carrie is kind of reflecting on that thought, and she's saying, "It's the only thing he ever said to me that acknowledged any intimacy between us, and it was enough." Now, The Princess Diaries is a collection of diary entries from her time on Star Wars and a reflection back. So it was really cool to see that back and forth between her current self and her 19-year-old self, about her kind of deep crush she had on Harrison, and how it was very kind of one-sided, at least that's what it seemed to her. And I think this quote really gives you a good example of the dynamic between the two. I really enjoyed learning more about her, but like I said, the bulk of it is her romance with Harrison Ford. And if you are not necessarily a romance person, that might be, in a way, a problem for you. And last but not least, the last book on my list that turned out to be my favorite book of the year is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. And I talked about this on my favorite books of the year video, but honestly, I love this book. I love it so much. I already talked about it there, but I guess to add some thoughts to it, I was talking about this book to a friend from college, and she was telling me how she was really surprised at the topics a YA book was talking about. She said she didn't expect a young adult book to deal with topics like police brutality and microaggressions and racism, and that how she was really surprised about that and excited to read the book because I recommended it to her. And I thought about it, what she said, and the only thing I could think of was that I think that's the great thing about the book, because it's kind of YA. The prose is really easily digestible and easy to read, which makes the storytelling that much better, and it's so like vivid, and it's able to pop out. The story just pops out from the pages, and I think the characters really shine through in this novel, especially Star, who is our main character, and all her feelings, all her inner thoughts are written in a way that they're so tangible and so real that you're immediately thrown into the world and forget about yourself for the duration of that book. You are Star in that moment. And yeah, those are the books I read in December. I only read 4. Sucks for me. Now I want to talk about my January TBR, and this is / library book haul, because all these books on my TBR, I literally just got them from the library. So the first book I wanted to talk about is Exit West. I've heard so much good things about this book. I'm really excited to finish it because I already started it. But this book, if you guys don't already know, I'm pretty sure you already know, it's a story about Saeed and Nadia, and they are 2 people in love in a country that's on the brink of a civil war, and they're forced to leave and immigrate to different places. So I'm about on page 71 of this book, but so far I think the writing is so kind of whimsical and fairy tale-esque, and I don't know if I'm just getting that because this is kind of told from a third-person omniscient point of view, so like the narrator knows it all, and I feel like I'm reading like a classic book, like Little Women or something like that, because of it. But so far I really enjoy it and I can't wait to finish it. The next book I want to talk about is this book. It's called Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. And this is a collection of short stories all revolving about women. They're all women's stories. And I've seen all the stories in this book online being described as dark, mysterious, strange, experimental, and provocative. There's kind of a different variety of genres in all the short stories, but the thing that kind of unites them all together is that they're all kind of tinged with psychological realism. And I'm a giant fan of psychological realism. One of my favorite psychological realism books is Crime and Punishment, so I'm very excited to get into this book and read it. The next book I want to talk about is this book, The Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdrich. I can't pronounce things. This book takes place in a world where evolution has kind of stopped functioning the way it's supposed to go. It's kind of going in reverse. So not only humans, but literally everything on the earth has just started to reverse. The main character is 26-year-old Cedar, and she is pregnant. But as the world and humanity starts to panic, this kind of ultra-conservative religious government kind of rises up and starts to close in on her. And the reason I got this book is because the premise honestly reminded me of the book slash film Children of the Men and the book The Handmaid's Tale. So I'm interested to see what those mixture of those two books would look like. And yeah. The next book I got is Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. And this is a companion piece to his other trilogy, his Dark Materials. I gotta be honest, I've only read one Dark Materials book, and that was Golden Compass. So it should be interesting to read this book, but I heard you don't necessarily need to know or need to read all of those books to know and understand the things that are happening in this one. But I'm really excited to read it. It was waitlisted a lot at my library. Everybody wanted this book, so when I saw it on the shelf, I just couldn't help myself and I grabbed it. The next book I got is All the Crooked Slates by Maggie Stivater. Is that how you say her name? I don't know. But this book takes place in Beachorado, Colorado, which, side note, I find it very interesting that she named her town Weird Bug. I don't know, just think that was cool. But it's like this desert town, and this family called the Soraya, I don't know if they're Latino family, and they all have magical powers that allow them to grant miracles. And that's basically all I know about this book. But the cover is really cool, and the premise about miracles seems interesting to me in the Saints thing, so hopefully I will enjoy it. Next book I have is this one. Honestly, I picked this book because I think the cover is beautiful, but it's called The World Goes On by Laszlo Krasznahori. Krasznahori? I don't know how to say names. But this is originally a Hungarian book published in 2015, and the English translation was published last year. And this book is also another collection of short stories, but they're all told from one narrator. It's one point of view, and he's kind of narrating all these different stories in the book. The way I've seen people interpret this book is being stuck on the most wonderful, endless maze. So I'm interested to see what that looks like in a novel. And most reviewers I've seen say it's transcendent, genre-breaking, and genre-bending. And I know his writing has been compared to Kafka. So I think I'm in for a very exciting trip with this book. So yeah, that's the end of my video. Those are the books I'm planning on reading and hopefully will finish. But thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Bye.